All right, let's shift gears a little bit to Donald Trump. We're still on Veep watch here with what is going to happen with Donald Trump's vice presidential pick. Allegedly, there were a couple of people who had made the shortlist: Doug Burgum, Marco Rubio, and JD Vance. Trump appeared on Brian Kilmeade's show and Brian Kilmeade asked him about each of these, and he actually kind of laid some of the things about each one and why they might be good. So let's take a listen.
On your vice president candidate, word is that you won't pick JD Vance because of his facial hair. Is that true?
No,
facial hair
I've never heard that one.
Number two,
no.
Doug Burgum, the thing
he
that
looks
hurts.
like a young Abraham Lincoln.
Right, he's a handsome man. Doug Burgum,
he's a nice guy.
On abortion in North Dakota, he signed something legislation handed him. Does that hurt him?
Well, it's a little bit of an issue. It's a pretty strong ban. You know, I think Doug is great, but it is a strong. He's taken a very strong stance, or the state has. I don't know if it's Doug, but the state has.
Yeah.
It's an issue.
And lastly, Marco Rubio.
An issue.
You know, Marco Rubio and being from Florida, would that stop you from picking him?
No, but it does make it more complicated. You know, you do that and it makes it more complicated. There are people that don't have that complication. Now it's fairly easily fixed, but you have to do something with delegates, or there has to be a resignation, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not like picking some people where it's very easy, where there is none of that. Florida, meaning two people can't be running on the same ticket. You actually can, but they take delegates, and taking delegates is, you know, a very risky thing to do, right?
See you in Milwaukee, Mr. President. Thanks so much for the quality time for our audience, and thanks so much for the insight. Do you think you'll make your pick tomorrow, Vice President?
No, not tomorrow. I'll make it close to the convention. I would love to do it. It used to be picked during the convention, Brian. It made the convention, frankly, more interesting. The pick used to be during the convention. That's what I'd like to do. But with modern technology,
yes,
if you can believe it, it's like everything else. Like voting used to be better with all paper ballots. I mean, modern technologies, there's a lot of things, and it makes it easier if you pick before the convention.
Mr. President, thanks.
I'd love to be the old-fashioned way and do it during the convention.
Okay, so let's go through some of the things that he said about, what did he say? He started off with JD Vance and his facial hair. This was a stupid article that came out in the Bulwark. I don't even know why Brian Kilmeade is talking about that one. The second one is Doug Burgum. I actually think that was the most consequential thing that he said. And then the third about Rubio, he's talking about the residency requirement. But to actually go through some of like the pluses and the minuses, one of the things we were talking about before the show is I would not put it past Trump to actually pick somebody out of those three. Now that the race has so fundamentally changed, in a world where New York and Virginia, Colorado, New Hampshire are on the ballot, I would pick Glenn Youngkin. Like, I would pick a hyper moderate, blue state, red governor, and run him who's friendly to the donors, because now I'm going for broke. I'm going for 380 electoral votes. I'm not going for a narrow victory against Joe Biden. I just think in this blowout scenario, things could change. And I do think his mind probably has shifted as a result of what has happened here. Now, again, I don't know what each of these three, whether this three is even the final list. The campaign manager, Chris LaCivita, continues to poo-poo any discussion of like, this is the final list, or that's not even true. So there's a lot of spinning going on. And the thing is too with Trump, I mean, he didn't make the Pence call until very, very late in the game. So I actually believe him when I say it's gonna be right up before the convention. I really do.
Yeah, Youngkin has been pretty popular in Virginia. I think tactically, Youngkin makes a lot of sense for him, because I do think he could potentially put Virginia in play. I also think that he is, donor class loves him, right? Trump's raising a lot of money from Wall Street and whoever. Youngkin is he's sort of undefined nationally, so that's a good thing as well in terms of shaping. He's not gonna overshadow Trump that much is for sure. He doesn't have a super, charismatic profile, any of that, and he has been somewhat of a moderate governor in Virginia. So I think tactically that makes a lot of sense. Is he going to reach outside of the ones that have been leaked to the press or the finalists? I have no idea. I do still stand by, I think Trump will make what he at least perceives to be a tactical play, which is why I've always been I just have never understood the case for JD Vance because Ohio's a red state. You're not bringing anything into play there. He's not from a demographic group. Like, he's a white dude, you know? So if you believe the identity politics play of like, we're going to have a Latino and then Latinos are going to vote for us, which I think is nonsense, but a lot of people believe, he doesn't make sense from that perspective. I saw someone floating like, oh, well, he's young, so maybe young people will vote for him, which I can't even believe that they would think. It's just so silly. So, you know, Trump, this is a very consequential election. It really matters that he's able to pull it across the finish line. The landscape has suddenly gotten much less certain. They are hoping and praying to God that Joe Biden is still at the top of the ticket.
Quite literally.
Because they know they will be able to wallop him come November. If it's a question mark who's at the top of the ticket, I mean, I think you could get someone in here that would be a lot more difficult for him to deal with. I think there could be a scenario where you have, you know, a candidate who feels like a new, fresh face, and that people who were so disgusted, which this is another unifying sentiment, so such disgust that these are the two choices that we're left with once again. I think you could really have a bump for that person if you know, made the right strategic choice. So he's in this sort of difficult position because he's having to pick a vice presidential candidate without really knowing what the landscape is. So that makes it even more important that you have a very tactical choice. Because on the one hand, he could be looking at the, you know, the historic landslide where he wins Virginia. On the other hand, he could be looking at a much more formidable candidate than he's facing now, in which place, you know, having a vice president that more people feel comfortable with and that puts states in play that otherwise might not be in play becomes more consequential. So I genuinely don't know. I just have a gut feeling that he's throwing us a little bit off the trail with the people that have been leaked to the press. Because, you know, he's a showman.
He is.
He loves a surprise.
That's what he just said.
He wants it to come out of nowhere. Yeah. He wants people to not be thinking. But I agree with you, the Doug Burgum comments, I think is probably real.
Yeah, I think
that he feels like the abortion thing with Doug Burgum, that kind of ruled out Kristi Noem. I think he probably does feel like that's a genuine issue for him.
He talks a little bit about that with Rubio, although he does tease it a little bit. So let's take a listen to that.
When will you make an announcement? Maybe tonight? And if he's not chosen, would he play a role in your administration?
Well, he certainly will, and he's a fantastic guy, and he's a friend of mine, and he is one of the top people. And let's see how we do over the next week, but probably over the next week or so, maybe even at the convention.
Lil Marco, come a long way.
She said maybe even at the convention. I'm taking a look at that. Let's put this one up there, please, on the screen. And these are the predicted odds in the betting markets. This is all just based on public reporting. So you've got JD Vance, Doug Burgum, Marco Rubio, Ben Carson, Glenn Youngkin there, Tulsi, I don't know where the hell that's coming from, Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Tim Scott. I would put Tim Scott way higher up on that list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling Glenn. Look, all of these I think are possibilities. A lot of it will come down to exactly the hole that he's trying to fill here. And like I said, the case for Vance that people are making to him is basically, look, this guy will run your administration. You can do whatever you want to do. The only reason I'm skeptical of that is Trump doesn't really care about governance.
Right.
The other problem for JD is that there is a lot of donors hate him, especially over Ukraine. Let's put this up there on the screen from the Daily Beast. Trump donors on the brink of civil war over JD Vance for VP. And people like Rupert Murdoch and others are adamantly opposed, whereas Marco Rubio and Doug Burgum are both. Rubio is beloved by the donor class. He's a Tea Party OG. Paul Singer and the rest of them adore him. Burgum is both filthy rich in his own right and is genuinely friends with all of these donors, so that's to his benefit. JD doesn't have the same like donor base per se of the people who like him. He hates the Wall Street. I was at a speech last night that he gave. He was going after the Wall Street Journal editorial board, so like there's a lot of those financial people who really hate him.
Isn't he himself a financial person though?
No, he's a venture capitalist.
Okay.
So there's a big difference, right, between Wall Street and VC.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like.
So I mean, it's definitely part of the financial industry.
Okay, but he's not out there advocating for corporate tax cuts. I mean, there's a pretty big difference between the Wall Street Journal editorial board, who's like, oh, actually, the corporate tax rate should be 0, right?
Sure.
One of the reasons they hate him the most is because he praised Lena Khan at this at a convention and said she was the best member of the Biden administration. I mean, as you know, that's unforgivable for a lot of these folks. So, anyways, Wall Street people don't like him. Wall Street Journal people don't like him. The Wall Street Journal's owner doesn't like him. So, and then the Ukraine thing is a problem for a lot of the neocons. I could see it.
What do you think about it? We were talking about this before. I think you view this a little different than me, but I feel like it's also a problem that there's all these clips of him on CNN like saying negative things about Trump. Is that a problem? And I know Trump really values loyalty, and JD has gone out of his way to sort of display his loyalty in recent years, but someone who could really totally change on a dime like that, how much can you really put stock in their long-term loyalty?
You could put it two ways. You can be, well, I've got a lot on this guy because he's somebody who like he previously criticized me, so now I have that over him as a way to question his loyalty or whatever, keep him in line. You could also put it the way that he said, I don't know. Look, I mean, the Trump family, the Trump Jr. and all those people, Trump Jr. wants Trump to pick JD Vance. Even today, he's tweeting out his clips. He keeps talking about he's the only America First candidate. So if he's forgiven him, I don't know. It's one of those with Trump where, look, Rubio ran against him, right? Rubio said he was unacceptable, and he's on the list. Burgum was on our show running against him. So, now all three of these folks.
What do you think about the Rubio? I'm just skeptical of that one, because Rubio's also botched some really big moments.
Yeah, Rubio's bad. Yeah, I mean,
I think in terms of Trump thinking about the showman aspect, and does he really show up when he needs to show up? Obviously, had that infamous, horrible State of the Union response. He was embarrassed by Trump and by Chris Christie during the Republican primary debates back in 2016. I mean, in a sense, that's ancient history, but I do think that those impressions linger of like, oh, this is someone that when the chips are down, they don't really show up.
Yeah, that's right. I would actually, that's probably Rubio's biggest problem.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, the other thing is Trump, this would be a case for both JD and Burgum, is that both of them are at least good enough on television who are defending him. At least with, Burgum was not good on our show, but he's been done well enough on CNN and elsewhere going after Joe Biden, et cetera. So that could be the role. I really don't know what Trump wants in a VP, because last time around it was, I just need these evangelicals and to solidify them. This time the dynamics are different. I mean, basically the evangelicals are all weeping and crying because they slightly softened the pro-life language in the GOP, in the RNC platform. And, and Trump is basically like, eat shit.
Get over it. And he knows that they
will. And by the way, he's right.
Yeah.
He should tell them that. Yeah. So, but this time it's like, what is the constituency? Like I said, are we going for the swing state voters? If we are, I'm going for Youngkin. Do we think that we're just going to win no matter what? And so I'm going to think about governance? I would pick JD. Do I have money problems? Now I'm picking Doug Burgum. I mean, I could make the case for all four. Yeah. I really don't know where his mind is right now.
The JD governance thing, again, just doesn't make sense, because he can be your chief of staff. He can run your, whatever is like the critical agency for you. You don't have to have him on the ticket. So the electoral case, unless you're just looking for someone who can be like a bulldog for you on cable news. But again, he'll do that whether he's on the ticket or not. So I don't know. But I also can't claim to understand the mindset. And I think it's possible Trump hasn't even fully decided, because the landscape is so much in flux right now that he's having to recalibrate. He may be running a totally different race than what he thought he was going to be running 2 weeks ago.
He would be a fool not to, because now it is not about Trump. It's not even really, it's about inflation, but it's not really about inflation. This man is gonna die like tomorrow. You need to elect me to save us from this urgent crisis. Now, Trump will benefit from the same phenomenon that Biden did, where people are not voting for Biden. They're voting against Trump.
Right.
Same thing. So now you've got
Biden's
millions.
the nominee, though.
Yeah, that's right.
If Biden's the nominee.
I don't know. Yeah, but even with Kamala, I mean, you could prosecute the case of like, what did she know? When did she know it?
I think he knows how to run against Kamala. I mean, she's been in the public eye enough. They've thought enough about her. I'm sure they have Oppo on her. But she also will get to pick, if it's Kamala, she'll get to pick a vice presidential, an Andy Bashir or whoever to round out that ticket as well. So it makes the selection more difficult for him, because he doesn't know who he's up against. He doesn't know. He doesn't have any special insight. He's looking at all the things that we're looking at and trying to make his best guess as well. Earlier this week on Sean Hannity's show, he said, I think Biden's got too much ego to drop out. I think it may be him. Things have shifted since then. So is his assessment different today? We don't know. He's playing the same game in a lot of ways that we are, and having to pick a vice presidential ticket without knowing whether you're going to be going against a historically weak candidate or someone who may be more formidable, which does make those tactical concerns much more paramount, because you've got to make a choice that is going to play, whether it's against Biden or Kamala or question mark candidate that's out there that we don't
What I would do
if
I were him is I would wait until the very, very last possible moment. I would have 3
Definitely.
candidates and I would wait. And if I were him, maybe I would even vote until the convention because we'll probably know by that point whether Biden is going to be
I think we're going to have a good
race.
sense.
We'll have a much better
by
sense.
the end of day tomorrow, honestly.
So
where
if
things are
Biden is
headed.
dropping, then okay, now we're changing things up a little bit. If Biden is staying, okay, now we're like I said, we're going for broke. We're going for 380 electoral votes. So I think that things could change still rapidly. And even if you read history, a lot of these VP picks, they come together at the last minute. The Sarah Palin thing, it wasn't final until like 6 days before, 4 days before, something like that. So you never know. Things can change a lot.
Yeah, and they also typically are not that consequential.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Palin ended up being consequential. Biden in the arc of history ends up being consequential,
I'm trying
but
to
not
remember
so much in terms of Barack
the Tim
Obama's.
Kaine one. I don't remember much about it. Yeah, I guess people didn't really care that much.
Yeah, they didn't care.
Mike Pence was huge.
he
Yeah.
was just sort of like a amorphous dad on the ticket.
Right.
Mike Pence was important, so it's not like it doesn't matter whatsoever. But in any case, we'll see where it goes.
All right, everybody, we'll see. As we said, we'll have coverage later today, so stay tuned for that. Thank you to all of our premium subscribers. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you all next week. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.